Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into what is absolutely a monumental gamble, one that could completely rewire the global tech landscape. The president of the Philippines just stood before his nation and effectively wagered its entire future on artificial intelligence. We're talking about a massive commitment to build a sprawling 4,000-acre AI industrial hub right in the heart of the country. This isn't just your standard tech park. It's a massive, calculated bet designed to position the nation right at the epicenter of the AI era. Okay, let's dive into this. The United States specifically chose this exact piece of land to be the site of the very first AI-native industrial hub on the planet. But if you look at the major tech news, it's been practically invisible. There's been almost zero coverage in the US press. Why is that? Well, simply because it's happening 8,000 miles away from San Francisco. We regularly treat minor software updates like they're moon landings, but an actual physical AI megacity is literally being built from the dirt up. And crickets. Complete silence.
To understand why this is such a big deal, you really have to look at the sheer scale of the investment, up to $70 billion, up to 190,000 jobs. This project is totally transforming 1,618 hectares, which is roughly 4,000 acres, in Tarlac, right next to what used to be America's biggest military base outside the U.S. mainland. They're calling this futuristic hub a golden node, and it sits squarely inside the newly established Luzon Economic Corridor. That's an area the U.S. and the Philippines have been quietly developing together over the last couple of years.
Let's just do the math out loud for a second to truly grasp the magnitude here. The entire Philippine economy sits at around $500 billion a year. At the top end, this single $70 billion project equals roughly 14% of the country's entire gross domestic product. And that is all concentrated on one single plot of land. To put that into perspective for us, there is no American equivalent for this. It would be like someone dropping a $4 trillion development project straight onto a single county in Ohio. The economic density we're looking at is just absolutely staggering.
So let's look at part one. What is Pax Silica, the master plan?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the geopolitical coalition that actually makes a project of this massive size possible. See, this isn't just a standalone factory. It's the physical anchor of a much larger global strategy. The initiative driving all of this is called Pax Silica. To understand the name, think of Pax, kind of like Pax Romana, a peace enforced by whoever holds the power. Silica obviously refers to silicon and chips. This is an American-led coalition of countries explicitly agreeing to build out the entire supply chain for the AI era together. We're talking critical minerals, chips, data infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, the whole shebang. And make no mistake, it's a strategic circle very deliberately designed to exclude China.
The momentum behind this coalition has been incredibly fast. Let's trace the timeline really quickly. In December 2025, the U.S. officially launches the coalition with just 7 initial members. A mere 4 months later, in April 2026, the Philippines eagerly raises its hand and joins as member number 13. By the June summit in Washington, membership skyrockets to 24 countries signing on to its AI principles. And then, boom, by July 27th, President Marcos delivers his State of the Nation address, putting this exact AI city right at the center of the country's political and economic agenda. What makes this Tarlac site a golden node is that it's a totally new concept. Instead of trying to awkwardly retrofit shiny new AI tech into old, outdated industrial parks, this hub is designed to be AI native from day one. Chip facilities, minerals processing, and massive research institutions are all seamlessly designed around each other from the very first blueprint. Foxconn, the giant company that builds iPhones, is already lined up as the anchor tenant. And the funding? Well, it's backed by a newly expanded $25 billion war chest from the U.S. Development Finance Corporation.
Which brings us to Section 2, the real cost of AI, the ground reality.
See, while the boardroom is celebrating, the ground is furious. On the exact day of the president's speech, 15,000 people actually marched in protest. And get this, his own sister demanded a Senate probe. Why? So the crucial point is the undeniable arithmetic of natural resources. Before we write off the critics as just being anti-progress, we really have to look at the math. An AI hub at this immense scale requires approximately 130 million liters of water every single day. That's the equivalent daily water usage of 600,000 households. But the local reservoirs proposed to supply the site, they currently top out somewhere between 65 and 120 million liters a day. The water math fundamentally just doesn't close, and this creates a projected deficit in central Luzon, which happens to be the exact region responsible for growing the country's rice. And the resource strain absolutely doesn't stop at water. This single AI campus is going to need around 3 gigawatts of electricity. That is equal to a staggering 16% of Luzon's entire current grid capacity. It's basically the output of 3 massive coal plants just to run one campus. Now, the government has stated the hub will get its own dedicated power, mostly from solar, and won't touch the public grid or groundwater. But the local farmers are pushing back hard because, to date, the government hasn't actually published the load study required to prove those solar power promises. Right now, they're basically arguing against a promise. This tension leads to a deeply profound sentiment from the ground. A rice farmer in Tarlac captured this situation perfectly when he said, "You're taking my water so machines can think." It's a stark, incredibly powerful quote. It anchors all this abstract geopolitical data we've been talking about in very real human emotion and survival. It shows us that the skeptics aren't just complaining for the sake of it. They have real, hard arithmetic driving their anger. Moving on to Section 3, negotiating the future, the compromise. And this brilliantly illustrates the next layer of the story. When you look past the initial headlines, you find that the serious critics aren't actually saying a flat no. They're saying yes, but with conditions. The demands coming from the ground are incredibly practical. Critics want a strict guarantee that household and farm water is totally secured before a single server rack gets a drop. They want renewable energy prioritized so the grid math actually works out. They are demanding that Filipino engineers and local cooperatives are written directly into the contracts so those high-value jobs stay local. And lastly, they want total public transparency on every single resource allocation. This frames the situation perfectly. It's not really a protest against foreign investors getting 99-year land leases. It's a nation openly negotiating the price of its sovereignty and really the price of going first in the AI revolution. Section 4, the first mover dilemma, risk versus reward. Let's move to and see how this builds into the broader macro thesis. Out of 24 coalition countries, why did the Philippines secure this massive hub over richer or larger neighbors like Vietnam, Indonesia, or Singapore, who were frankly still forming committees? Because they raised their hand first. This is the classic first mover dilemma playing out on a national scale. On the left side here, you have the visible cost of going first. It shows up immediately. It's the protests, the negative headlines, the anxiety over resource strain. It's pain that you can literally photograph today. But on the right side is the invisible cost of waiting. That cost shows up quietly in year 5, when the engineering jobs and the massive AI supply chains have permanently settled in another country. There are no protest photos for the factory that never came.
Now, I want you to take a step back from the geopolitics for a second and apply this directly to yourself. If you are focused on building something, whether that's a business, a career, or a project, you are running this exact same decision matrix. What a whole nation is doing right now with 4,000 acres of land, you are doing with your next 12 months. The bill for moving forward is highly visible and often pretty painful. The bill for waiting is totally invisible. But make no mistake, you pay one of those bills either way.
And that takes us to the grand conclusion of this saga. In November, the ASEAN summit comes to Manila, and this is where the final framework agreement for the megacity will either be signed in ink or fall apart completely. The ultimate question is, will those practical safeguards, the water guarantees, the renewable energy sourcing, the local hiring, actually make it into the final binding contract, or will they just be left as talking points in op-eds? A whole nation just made a bold move with the bill sitting right there on the table. It undoubtedly takes incredible nerve. But whether that nerve equates to actual wisdom, well, we will find out in November. If you found this breakdown valuable and want to follow up when that final contract is signed, let us know. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.